Two significant developments tonight involving the security of Europe. First, on Ukraine, there's been a declaration of intent from the leaders of the UK and France that would pave the way for British and French troops to be deployed if a peace deal is reached with Russia. The aim to deter a future attack. Now, it came at a meeting in Paris of European leaders, members of the so-called Coalition of the Willing, hoping to agree security guarantees for Kyiv. President Zelensky described it as a huge step forward, and Steve Witkoff, the US envoy, said it marked a big milestone. But the other key issue for European leaders at their summit was how best to handle Donald Trump's increasingly tough rhetoric over the future of Greenland, a semi-autonomous region of Denmark. Tonight, the White House said utilizing the US military in furtherance of the goal of acquiring the territory is always an option. Bravado or a genuine threat? Might the US military attempt to seize by force land belonging to a fellow NATO country? Well, more on that in a moment from Sarah Smith at the White House and Katya Adler, who'll be live in Paris. And we'll have analysis from Chris Mason here in the studio. But first, James Waterhouse has our top story tonight from the European Summit.
As their name suggests, this mostly European coalition has always said it's willing to help Ukraine after the fighting stops, but never how. In Paris, though, there was the first bit of detail. A promise from the UK and France to send troops once a ceasefire is in place. We're told thousands as part of a reassurance force across land, sea and air.
This is a vital part of our ironcast commitment to stand with Ukraine for the long term.
This group of almost 30 nations also promised to help monitor the frozen front lines to make sure fighting doesn't break out. But the most influential people in the room weren't seasoned politicians, but Donald Trump's friend and real estate investor Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, both now senior ambassadors. European confidence to help Ukraine with troops has been hampered with an American reluctance to step in if there was a direct confrontation with Russia, although not now, they claimed.
The president does not back down from his commitments. He is strong for the country of Ukraine and for a peace deal.
Those words might have been more reassuring if Donald Trump hadn't staged an extraordinary military intervention in Venezuela and repeated his desires to take over Greenland, a Danish territory. This US delegation has also been accused of being more friendly to Russia than Ukraine. Before the meeting has even started, European leaders have put out this statement in support of Greenland after Donald Trump's repeated claims of wanting to annex the territory. So you have this scenario where the ambitions of NATO's most powerful member are making the rest of the alliance nervous. Europe is trying to unite around Ukraine against Russian aggression, as well as attempting to take America with it. And we don't even know what Moscow will agree to. In these geopolitical times, this is a continent having to tread carefully. James Waterhouse, BBC News, Paris.
Well, what about that statement from the White House tonight saying the acquisition of Greenland is a national security priority for the US and that using the military is always an option? Alarm bells have been ringing across capitals right across Europe. Greenland and Denmark now want talks with the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. In a moment, we'll hear from Katya Adler in Paris. But first, let's talk to Sarah Smith in Washington. This statement, it does seem a little bit strange, certainly for European leaders, that there is the possibility that troops might be used to take Greenland.
Yes, it's an option, the White House said today, and I think this has come about because President Trump was clearly so delighted by the success of the military operation in Venezuela that it may have given him an appetite for going after other foreign targets, because it was very shortly after the arrest of the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro that he started talking again about his desire to acquire Greenland. And then today, the White House press secretary gave this statement to the BBC in which she said that President Trump has made it well known that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority of the United States and that it is vital to deter our adversaries in the Arctic region. The President and his team, she said, are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal. And of course, utilising the US military is always an option at the Commander-in-Chief's disposal. Now, also today, a senior White House official told Reuters that President Trump does want to require Greenland in this current term, so that's at some point in the next 3 years, and that he was looking at options of purchasing the territory from Denmark or forming some kind of very close alliance with the island. So there are definitely a range of options on the table. But anyone with any doubt about where Donald Trump thinks that he sits in the Americas and his desire to extend his influence across the Western Hemisphere should look at the image that was posted yesterday, a very moody-looking Donald Trump with the clear statement on it that said, "This is our hemisphere." He means the Western Hemisphere. And by that, he includes not just North America and Greenland, but Central and South America as well. He thinks that America has the right to control and influence what happens in what he considers to be the US's backyard. And he is definitely flexing his muscles on that this week.
All right, Sarah, thank you for that. Sarah Smith at the White House. Let's go to Katya Adler, who's in Paris. What's been the reaction to all this from European leaders, Katya?
Well, of course, Clive, the reason that so many European leaders were here in Paris was as part of the coalition of the willing. What they really wanted to do was try and find a way towards a stable future for Ukraine after aggression from Russia ends. And they need the United States on board for that. The risk is over Greenland is that they end up going head to head with Donald Trump, because Greenland, yes, it is an Arctic island, but it is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark's. The Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, was inside the meeting today. She's a key EU ally for many of the European leaders here today and a key NATO ally of the United Kingdom's. But in the end, at this meeting at the Élysée, Paris, there was such a Greenland-shaped elephant in the room, Clive, that 6 major European powers, including the UK, France and Germany, made that joint statement and said the only ones who can decide the future of Greenland is Greenland itself and Denmark. But is that really enough to contain Donald Trump's ambitions? As we've just heard there from Sarah, he's put all sorts of unilateral possibilities on the table to acquire Greenland, whether to buy it or to take it by military force. And what we've seen so far since Donald Trump was re-elected as president is European powers dancing this really difficult diplomatic dance to manage Donald Trump, yes, to stand up for European values or allies, but always trying to avoid his ire or to provoke him. But will that still be possible? The Danish Prime Minister says if he takes Greenland, that will be the end of the transatlantic alliance NATO that Western Europe has relied on for its security since the end of the Second World War. And if Europe continues in this very, very careful attitude with Donald Trump, in the new world of big power politics that we now live in, that Donald Trump seems to relish, Europe risks at best just being a bystander and at worst being trampled underfoot.